You don't have to like President Trump or his administration or his re-election campaign or anything like that. But if you love America, what has transpired in our nation, not just what I'm about to talk about right now, but over the past few years, the past few decades, that should move you towards righteous anger. And not just any righteous anger, but the same righteous anger the founding generation had when even the most mediocre, mildest form of tyranny encroached upon them, they broke it. And yet today, Americans take so much. Today, Americans tolerate an America that has not been America for a very, very long time. As many of you have heard, it's been breaking news. A Colorado panel of judges decided, unilaterally, with the gavel, that President Trump was disqualified from being on Colorado's ballot. Now, those of you who have been following the lawfare that's been happening over the past year or so in relation to President Trump and in relation to other progressive causes will understand exactly what the core root of this, and you will understand immediately the intentions behind this ruling. But for those of you who don't follow that stuff, it's very important to understand what's at play here. It's very important to look beyond the surface and see the various kinds of phenomenon actually happening that are, if left unchecked, so dangerous for America. These judges disqualified President Trump from the Colorado ballot for the general election on the basis of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I will read a part of their ruling. These judges say in their opinion, and I quote, "In this appeal from a district court proceeding under the Colorado Election Code, the Supreme Court considers whether former President Donald J. Trump may appear on the Colorado Republican presidential ballot. A majority of the court holds that President Trump is disqualified from holding the office of president under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Because he is disqualified, it would be a wrongful act under the Election Code for the Colorado Secretary of State to list him as a candidate on the presidential primary ballot." Now, what does Section 4 of the 14th Amendment actually say? Very simply, it says, no person shall be a senator in Congress or representative or elector of president or vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or an officer of the United States or as any member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial, you get the point, to support the Constitution, shall have engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. President Trump, very simply, has not been convicted of anything. President Trump has not been convicted of anything in a court of law. Not only that, but only a certain kind of narrative, birthed from a certain kind of political predisposition, would even think to use the Constitution in this way for this point. Which should just show you, this has nothing to do with law and everything to do with mediocre political posturing dressed up in the robes of judicial legitimacy. Rather than being based on any sound legal or moral doctrine, this judgment is instead yet another example of how the oligarchic elitist mentality has infiltrated the American government by virtue of the progressives in the progressive era through sociological jurisprudence, which I'll explain in a moment here, and has usurped classical republicanism, has gotten rid of checks and balances, and has instead tried to posture itself in a way that compromises the integrity of our entire constitutional order. This is simply oligarchic power politics at play, dressed up in black robes and wielding a gavel that, in my opinion, should shatter into 10 million pieces because that gavel is being used for evil, and I and no other American should tolerate evil from our judges or anyone else. Those judges need to be removed from office. They need to be primary or whatever, impeached by the state legislatures. No one should hold a gavel who is willing to do something so odious. My friends, when law is divorced from morality, it is no longer law. It is the arbitrary whim of a tyrant seeking to inflict his desire upon the world through the banner of legitimacy while not actually having the substance of anything except his own arbitrary whim. And progressives, the left, have been doing this for decades upon decades upon decades. This ruling is not possible without the doctrine within legal philosophy in America that was created by Roscoe Pound, who is a legal theorist in America during the progressive era, called sociological jurisprudence. And to be very simple, I won't go into any jargon, but to be very simple, sociological jurisprudence holds, in so many words, that the law should not be, or is not a matter of adhering to first principles, adhering to bedrock, strong legal criteria rooted in a philosophy, but rather, the law is simply a tool to solve conflicts between social parties and to be an apparatus that is informed by social consciousness and the conditions of the society at hand. The entire project of the progressives during the progressive era, which fundamentally changed America for the worse in so many different ways, their fundamental project was to destroy the proper relationship between the average American citizen and his government, so that the American citizen would not be the person that had control or had authority over his government, but that the government would be the entity that had control and authority over the American citizen under the banner of protection and benevolence and egalitarianism and giving so much and providing so much. This is why the welfare state exists. So in that same milieu comes this idea that the law is not a tool to be used to consider matters of principle or matters of strict legal criteria, but it's a tool to be used to further your own social agenda. That is why a panel of judges in Colorado, with a straight face, with no shame, under that system, can get up and make an opinion like that is so odiously incorrect, unconstitutional, that is fundamentally morally illegitimate. Because their conception of morality in its relationship with law, their conception of constitutional order and its relationship with America is entirely deviant from what is correct and what is proper. And until we begin to actually realize that we have people inhabiting every level of government, every branch of government, that do not care about America, that reject atomic philosophy, that reject the principles that America needs as a matter of being a classically Republican system modeled from the Roman Republic onwards to survive, then America will not survive until its citizens understand just how deep this rot and this corruption runs. It's not just power politics. It's a matter of worldviews. There are different worldviews inside of the system that is meant to protect Americans. Donald Trump may be the target right now, but this same worldview and this same kind of thinking has been weaponized against all kinds of Americans over the past few decades by the national security state, by the administrative state, by political forces that do not care about proper constitutional order to quash them. Many of your minds may go towards the J6 protesters, many of whom did nothing violent and are being treated as if they are terrorists. Many of your minds may go to the truckers in Canada. Many of your minds may go to so many different places. But going all the way back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover in the 1960s, this kind of reasoning has been deployed against innocent Americans because they go against the goals of the orthodoxy at that particular time. In America, where checks and balances are no longer anything more than a formality due to things like this, is an America that not only has lost its way, it has lost the integrity of its constitutional system. It has lost the integrity of its constitutionally Republican apparatus. It has lost the integrity of its ethos. It's lost its very core. Someone said something to me. Someone told me, they said, Christian, America has not been America since the 50s. And I have for a long time resisted that quote. And I still, in a sense, resist it, because I believe that we can salvage this mess, even if it's getting so bad. But in the 1950s, it's very important to know what happened around this period of time. As the philosopher Hannah Arendt, a brilliant visionary, notes, national security, the word national security, became the raison d'etre of the United States federal government in that time. What does that mean? That means that national security became the overriding consideration of every single action taken by the federal government, from the top all the way on down to all local affiliates as well. It became national security. Now, national security is one of the most dangerous words and dangerous phrases in the English language, because it's a euphemism. It's a euphemism that attempts to make the person hearing it think The goal is to secure something, when in all reality, that same label is then used to justify actions that actually endanger the rights and freedoms of many Americans, whether it be through surveillance, wireless surveillance, wiretapping Americans, whether it be through indefinite detention provisions that have been put in the past several national defense bills that have been passed in America, whether it be through the illegal opposition of the FISA courts, whether it be through jailing of political dissidents, whether it be through the FBI sowing discord between social groups that it didn't like in the 60s and arresting people and killing people who spoke out against its own objectives. They believed they were protecting America. National security is one of the most dangerous words in the English language. So when this same phrase lives strongly in the eyes of many of those who inhabit the government right now, and there are a lot of people who are are useful idiots for this phrase, does it not make sense to you that they would then be animated to do things that are otherwise immoral and illegitimate in the name of this abstraction? Whether it's progressive jurisprudence or whether it's national security, it's the same disease and it's the same infection that has been rippling throughout America for so long. For so long. This is a moment, this is a tipping point, my friends. Not because this is the first time this has happened. It's not. The national security state has been punishing people for decades. The orthodoxy, the cathedral, as Jarvin put it, has been punishing people for decades. This is not new. But what is new is the level of awareness, the level of enlightenment that we are seeing the average American possess as it relates to these issues. This is a turning point. More Americans, need to have the same posture that Vivek Ramaswamy struck when he said, "I will not be on the Colorado ballot if this illegitimate procedure, action, this mechanism, abuse mechanism is not reversed." That same radical posture for the truth and for morality is not only what our founding fathers had, it's what they used to break the yokes of mediocre ideas over the minds of men in their time. It's what they used to shatter the yokes of mediocre ideas over generations of people and introduce them to the actual truth by observation of nature, by study of philosophy, by study of power political order, by asking the deep questions that the society at that time didn't really care about, because the monarchy was a presumption that was set in stone until someone came along and challenged it. And it was this same conviction, this same truth-telling, morally convicted posture that motivated the founding generation in America to destroy even the slightest encroachments upon their freedom, like a whiskey tax that George Washington rode his horses to Western Pennsylvania to enforce, but failed to enforce. And one president afterwards, with Jefferson's administration, that same tax that people refused to pay peacefully was repealed. That's the kind of posture Americans need to have, because this is a do or die moment for our country. That's the kind of posture Americans need to have, because this is a moment to learn, to study, and then to act with what you learn. That's the kind of posture more Americans need to have, because we are at the cusp of possibly losing the greatest experiment in politics and society known to the history of man up until this point. We need to have the posture of the attitudes and the mentalities that allowed America to exist in the first place to ensure its preservation. Otherwise, this just won't work. If you can't see beyond partisanship, if you can't see beyond tribalism, you need to ask yourself a serious question. What is wrong with me? What is discordant in my soul? Why is my mind bound to mediocrity? Why can't I recognize the universal and see it beyond the local? Why can't I see what is universally necessary, even if in the moment it inconveniences my own perspective? If you can't see this moment for what it is, a turning point in the perception and the posture of government towards Americans. If this was Joe Biden or anyone else, I would have the same exact thoughts. But it's particularly egregious because President Trump is someone who is clearly under legal assault. He's clearly under the assault of lawfare. And again, whether it was Trump or someone else, When you weaponize the legal system, using tools the system has that it should have never had in the first place, because the system was never meant to contain such prowess within its breasts. It was never meant to contain such strength beyond the bounds of the Constitution. Then you are clearly someone who does not care about refining and revitalizing the system. You want to use the dead carcass of the system for your own political gain. That's what progressives have been doing for decades. That's what political opportunists have been doing for decades. They have used the mediocre thinking around law that has created more expansive powers for government, which has encroached upon society, which has encroached upon freedom, which has made America a shell of its former self, to continue to do that to pursue their own temporal political agendas. That's the deeper symptom of what's going on here. It's not about President Trump. It's about a philosophy that is at its core anti-American. It's about a philosophy that is at its core only possible and permitted in the presence of mediocre thinking. It's about a philosophy that at its core hates classical republicanism, hates the virtue of freedom, hates the individual, and will seek to do whatever it can to destabilize those things, even if it means reducing every single thing to a matter of collective survival. That's what the left has done when it comes to how they have treated certain events over the past few years. They reduced J6 to a matter of collective survival. This was an assault on democracy, meaning if someone assaults you, what do? You defend yourself. And they have used that as the raison d'etat to justify the tyrannical imprisonments of people that did nothing more than simply walk in the building. Now we know, walk in the building as the doors were open. This is what's at stake. This is what's at stake, my friends. This goes way beyond Trump. This is a deeper problem. We need to have that 1776 energy. We need to be willing to learn, to study, to read philosophy, to fight back peacefully with our minds, with our postures, and reject this encroachment upon our system, and reject anything less than the excellence demanded of us when this nation was first birthed. This judgment is morally illegitimate. It is constitutionally illegitimate. It is an abuse of the 14th Amendment. It is illegal. And most importantly, it is a product of decades of sustained mediocre thinking around the law, which has led to overextensions of the law, which has and will continue to lead to encroachments upon freedom. My friends, we have to reject this for what it is, and we have to reorient ourselves, our societies, and our systems back to the proper course so that we can again, in my opinion, truly believe that the America established in 1776 is the same kind of America, constitutionally and legally, today. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Be sure also to donate to me if you want to on my Discord. Join my Discord, rather, on the comment section down below. Donate to me on PayPal, Patreon, so on and so forth. I love you guys so much. Study history, study philosophy, and please stay pensive. Bye, everyone.